Hello everyone, so now I'm going to talk about the Simu competition project and how we solved it. First of all, let me start explaining that we have two model files for this project. We have model 1, which includes the solutions and recommendations for the original problem and the extensions 1 through 3. And then we have the model 2 file, which is mainly about modification 4, that is an increase in demand by 30%. And we also wanted to provide a combined solution by taking into account all the different recommendations and solutions from the previous 4 modifications and the original problem. The assumptions that we did for the model were the following. First, the car preparation capacity or cleaning capacity that we have the facility right now is equal to 10. Second, the cars must be returned at least one day before the parking period expires. This is to make sure that once the owner returns, his or her car will be available. Third, the minimum renting time is 1 day. Fourth, the party returning a car doesn't have to go through check-in at the facility. Fifth, there must always be a shuttle not in use for backup and maintenance purposes. And finally, that right now we don't have a reservation system because we want to maximize profit and know how to handle the high demand for the service. Okay, so now I'm gonna give you a quick overview of the model. So once parking arrivals are created at this source, they are combined with a car, and the car travels through this path until it gets to our facility. Once at the facility, the cars are cleaned and sent to the parking lot. Meanwhile, the park party or the people go through the server checking process, and once they have done the checking, they are transported using our shuttles to the airport. Once at the airport, this server air travel is used to model the traveling time of the parking arrivals. In the case of the renters, the renting arrivals are created on this source, and on this node they decide if there's a car available at our facility that they can rent. If that is true, they will go to this shuttle station for pickup, and they will travel to our facility using our shuttle system. Once they arrive at our facility, they will go through checking, and they will be combined with the rented car on this combiner. And the server car travel that I got right here is used to model the renting time that the car will be used. So once the renters are done with the car, they will go back through this path and return the car on this point. The car will be recleaned and be sent back to the parking lot. Meanwhile, the renters will go back to the airport using our shuttle system and destroyed at this sync rent party. On the case of the parking arrivals, once they are done on this server here, they will go back to our facility and be destroyed on this sync park party after they have been returned their car. So to validate our model, we asked ourselves what would be the check-in server utilization if this one had a capacity of 2 and an arrival rate of 20.8 entities per hour. This arrival rate was calculated from this table, and we also know that the service rate of this server is about 30 entities per hour per clerk. So in the case that we have 2 clerks, we can expect an utilization of 0.34. We see that the model gave us something similar, and we got 0.31 from the model. So we can be pretty sure that the model is correct, but just to be sure completely, we estimated the revenue that we could get from the service in 4 weeks. So we can expect that in 4 weeks, about 5,230 entities will want to rent a car from our facility, and based on an average renting time of 7 days and an average renting price of $56.75 per day, calculated based on this table. And if we assume that about 10% of our clients are lost to competition, we can expect a revenue of about $934,927 per month. And we see that the model gave something really similar, so we can be pretty sure that the model is correct. Regarding this problem's logic, what we did was to assign an ID to the park party, the rent party, and the car. The car and the park party were assigned the same ID in order to identify which car was of which party. We also created a state that's called real travel time that is used to represent the time that the car will be parked or the time that the car will be rented. In order for an entity to be able to rent a car, it had to fulfill this condition, that is that rent party dot real travel time has to be less than car real travel time minus car timing system minus real buffer time. So this state right here, a buffer time is 1 day, and it's because of the assumption that we made at the beginning that the cars had to be returned at least 1 day before the owner returns. And on the other hand, we had that once a car is returned to its owner, it has to fulfill this condition, that is that the IDs have to match. To determine the warm-up period of our model, we ran the simulation and we found out that 14 days into it, the values of the number of travelers or number of renters and the number of people who parked their car at our lot stabilized around 1200 and 1800, and also the parking spots available at our parking lot stabilized around 7, and they could go up to 50, but pretty much it began to approximate steady state. So what we decided for the experiment conditions was to use 15 replications per scenario. We also wanted to use this amount of replications in order to ensure the half width of smaller than 5% and to reduce the processing power needed to run the simulation. So since we noticed that the steady state began around 2 weeks, we used a warm period of 3 weeks and a complete runtime of 7 weeks. So in this way, we would have a effective runtime of 4 weeks, or approximately 1 month. So now talking about the original problem stated by the project, what we have is that in order to comply in all cases with the maximum traveling times of 15 and 20 minutes, we found that we need a lot of drivers and clerks. For example, in this case right here, that we have a maximum traveling time from the facility to the airport of 13.6, we find that we need 10 drivers per shift and 3 clerks per shift in order to achieve it, with a shuttle capacity of 8. And the profit that we get out of this scenario is about 520,000. When compared to this other scenario, then which we get a profit of 680,000, we see that we're losing about more than 150,000 of profit per month. So what we want to do is find like a middle point between these two cases. But when considering that the average time on this last scenario is 8.18 and the half width of this value is about 0.6, 0.7, we see that 95% of the clients will actually wait less than 9 minutes to get from the facility to the airport, and that these 21 minutes right here are actually a really extreme case, and therefore we consider that this last option is a better one, and it's the one we chose. As I was saying, on this last option we found that the parking lot size that we recommend is 650, and with this parking lot we have a profit of about 680,000, and the number of clerks needed are about 6, 2 per shift, and the number of drivers needed are 10. And we also went for the small van that has a capacity of 8, and we need 8 of this in order to get these times that I already explained that are pretty good. Now, talking about modification 1, which is the possibility of choosing an alternative car in case the one you want is not available, what we found is that the parking lot size recommended remains the same at 650 spots, and that the profit is slightly increased in about 3% to 706,000. Also, the type of shuttle that we should use remains the same, that is a small van, and as we can see, the traveling times kind of remain the same. They have not changed that much when compared to the original model. Okay, so now talking about extension 2, which is to consider a further allocation that is cheaper. What we found out was that in order to comply with the traveling times that we have accepted as valid, we need a high amount of drivers per shift, and the profit was actually reduced because the cost of these extra drivers and clerks was actually higher than the cost that we save by moving out to a further location. So in conclusion, the further allocation is not recommended because we have a reduced profit due to the extra drivers and clerks needed to maintain travel times between the airport and the facility and vice versa. And also, this option may be feasible if the travel time requirements are changed. But we also have to consider that longer times might impact the customer satisfactions and the company's reputation. Okay, so now talking about modification 3, which is to consider a dwell time at the passenger pickup station at the airport. What we found is that this modification only makes sense if we can reduce the number of drivers, because that is one of the main costs that we have in this project. And what we found that was that when we reduce the number of drivers, the cost actually decreased and the profit increased, but the maximum times from the airport to the facility and vice versa suffered. And the only real possibilities that we have is having really small dwell times, like about 1 minute or two. So the with this modification, what we propose is a dwell time of 2 minutes at the same parking lot size of 650, and the profit that we get is about 693,000, which is a small increase from the original model. And with this, we can have a competitive traveling times, but this solution might actually be better if we could have more information about the round trip costs that the shuttle has for each round trip. Regarding the last modification, which is an increased demand for the service in 30%, what we found out was that the type of shuttle recommended changed to the large band. This band has a capacity of 12, and we need 10 of these bands in order to move the passengers from the airport to the facility and vice versa. We also found that the parking lot size required to maximize profit changed to 850, and that the profit actually increased quite a lot to 900,000 per month. This is a 200,000 increase, which is about 30% of the original profit that we had. The number of clerks needed remained the same, but the number of drivers increased to 14. And we also find that the traveling times between the airport and the facility remain competitive with this solution. Finally, we wanted to end this project with a combined solution, or a kind of proposal for the project. So considering that the demand will increase 30% over the next 6 months, we have found out that the car preparation capacity that we need to have our facility is 13 in order to get the maximum profit that we can. We have also decided that a dwell time of 1 minute might be a benefit for our system, and that if we consider the possibility of choosing an alternative car, we will get the highest profit that we can. So with all these considerations in place, we found that the best vehicle that we can have for our system is the large van. As I explained earlier, this one has a capacity of 12, and we need 10 of these vans. And the parking lot size with all these considerations remained the same at 850. The number of cars remained the same, and the profit that we expect is about 930,000, which is a slight increase from the previous modification 4 that we studied. And the times remain competitive, and this is a proposal, our final proposal for this project, and it's the one that we think that the company should implement in order to um, cope with the demand that it's going to increase in the following months. Thank you for watching this video. More information can be found on the executive summary and the appendix. And also you can get more information from the model and how it works if you check out the models that we have included with this video. Thank you.